And we're finding that one of the ways to link these different areas is through pervasive games or augmented reality and alternate reality games. And we've done these at conferences too, where you can have a fictitious narrative or theme-based examples. In this case, you're part of a fictitious company called DreamCorp. And over the course of a conference, you might have sessions that are on leadership at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 8 a.m. the next day. And you're able to have access to information on each of those and be able to follow and use certain clues and get access to those on an ongoing basis. We used live role play in the conference session, a help desk table. And then we also had virtual and mobile access to some of the clues through wikis and discussion boards, much like our MobiMOOC, and also text messages and emails for people to play through. And then we also had bonus rounds that took you into Second Life. So you're using all these technologies in Second Life and in real life to come together and guide you through sort of a scavenger hunt through the conference for the information that you'd want. And what does that sound like? That sounds like when we have mental scaffolding within our learning and our learning frameworks, and trying to define that mental scaffolding so that we have that on an ongoing basis. When Google saw this, they said that's what they'd like to have for a leadership training course. They had started a concept called G-learning. G-learning is how do we learn and engage with mobile in the cloud? How do we leverage all the tools we already have free access to, much like we're doing in this course? I don't know about for you guys, but this MobiMOOC course feels very different from a lot of the other courses. It's come together more rapidly, and we have access to all the resources of the world because we're not trying to stuff them into one little bitty box of an e-learning course or one simulation. We're using all the resources out and in the cloud wherever they exist on an ongoing basis. And that's one of the things that I've been really fascinated by as we go through this. So we used our moving knowledge engine, the same thing we used for the My Sports Pulse, to link all of the different and maybe mash up all the different tools that Google wanted to use, like YouTube, Gmail, Google Docs, and Moderator, and leverage them in a unique way where we can have all of this multimodal delivery over basic phones, smartphones, high-end phones, doesn't matter, accessible to us on mobile devices and also on the desktop. At the end of the day, Gmail is Gmail is Gmail. We don't care what device they're looking at it from, whether it's a BlackBerry, whether it's an Android phone, whether it's an iPad, whether it's a desktop or laptop computer. And then text messaging is fairly consistent too, as is interactive voice response. So if we use some of those technologies, and in particular Gmail, here's what the curriculum starts to look like. We can have Gmail that triggers a block of content that's sent to someone, and it has a link in it to go and watch a particular YouTube video. That YouTube video will then have a link at the end or a keyword at the end that triggers the next block of content. All of this is tracked in a game engine and on leaderboards, so that as they go through and go from tool to tool and learning construct to learning construct, we can have these micro learning theory mashups where each individual piece of content can activate a new learning theory and doesn't have to live all in one course, but can be accessed securely through the cloud. This is even true of their debrief sessions, much like our session here in Illuminate that we would do with WebEx, and gives us an opportunity to trigger some of this content and track it. And it's taken Google's program from 30% one-time participation with a completion rate they didn't want to advertise up to plus 90% participation in this program. So I was really intrigued by that too, and happy to see how their results have progressed. This is something that we're working on with Harvard Business right now to publish more results too, so be watching for that in the coming months too as we get this published and some of the actual learning results and outcomes of over 1,000 people going through this program, or roughly 1,000 people going through this program. But triggering that ongoing and having this show up in your inbox leverages something that we all have access to, email. Doesn't require high-end app development. Doesn't even require that you're on a specific mobile device or even a mobile device at all, but allows you to have this continuity and this mental scaffolding as you go through the various operations that you need to do to reflect close to the real-life activity that a Google leader is going to go through, because they will have to use all these tools in synchronicity and be getting information flowing at them from videos they watch, from emails that come in, from text messages from their colleagues, and they all have to work seamlessly together. We've next taken that into the medical domain for some of the things we've been doing with our own College of Medicine at the University of Central Florida, linking our IT systems like Blackboard to mobile access through Mobile Central and Mobile Learn, and also building our own custom things like iPad-based integrated schedules across all the different courses, and linking that to avatars of the standardized patients for clinical decision-making. We've even been taking that a step further with the aid of some of the other people like Dr. Juan Sandan, who's the Dean of Simulation at our school, to do a virtual family where you have fictitious medical records, and those medical records can show up on the mobile device too, giving you access to your laboratory results, and having those in the palm of your hand on the mobile device, in addition to on screen, like you see here, but also having access to things like fictitious voicemails from patients talking about their ailments. And that's the way that doctors get information, through a number of different modalities that they all have to reconcile over and above their average everyday work environment. As you see, we've worked with a lot of different types of organizations, and one of the keys to ongoing innovation is much like what we're doing here. I hope that this MobiMOOC will form ongoing, lasting, and enduring partnerships with a number of the different people that we've had a chance and privilege to interact with, but also for all of you to think about ways that you can interact to really engage in compelling projects that have global impact, and how you can form international partnerships and have academic partners that really know how to work with non-government organizations, the government, industry partners, and even pursue things like joint grants to make some of these things possible that wouldn't be possible otherwise without some basic funding. One example of that is working with small businesses in our local area, and I'm sure some of you do this too. There's one called VCOM 3D, which I thought you might be interested in some of their technology, especially those who deal with people with disabilities or that want to make your programs, we call them in the U.S. ADA compliant, American Disability Act compatible, but where you want to be able to engage the broadest possible user audience. This particular tool that VCOM 3D has built, called SignSmith Studio, allows you to type text in here, and when you type the text, it automatically generates an avatar that can be used on your desktop, in Flash, or on mobile devices like the iPhone or iPod Touch that you see over here. And it does lip syncing, and from a dictionary, it does the actual sign language for any word that you've typed in here. And it builds that avatar automatically and allows you to save it out in multiple formats. So if you're trying to really be compliant and also engage the broadest possible audience, these are tools that could be really useful to you. But it also shows this notion of developing once and delivering many, and having a public university work with a small business to achieve something that makes each of us better, and that helps us with some of our needs for reaching the broadest possible audience. Even if you don't deal with people with disabilities, isn't it great to know that you can have multiple formats of access to this information for when you are technically disabled? Meaning, if you're driving, you should have your eyes on the road, your hands on the wheel, meaning only your auditory channel is open. So in essence, you should not be using your visual channel or your tactile channel when you're supposed to be doing something more responsible. And the same thing is true when you are in a noisy environment and can't listen to something. You want to be able to have the text of the same thing, the transcript of it. Those are things that are important in how we start to look at the ways that we're going to partner with different groups and work together. We're also looking at ways that we can go beyond what our partnering efforts can do at a public university, and looking at ways that we can spin off commercial innovations when they're ready for operations, so that we're spinning off mobile companies right now and learning companies. And some of those are not necessarily for-profit companies either. One of the other ideas in this area of engaging our next generation is people like Colin Forward, one of our students, our undergraduate students at University of Central Florida, who's leading a digital textbooks initiative and has been the past president of Habitat for Humanity, and is forming a service organization, a nonprofit, to try and help other clubs incubate and know how to leverage some of the technologies we're talking about. So Habitat for Humanity goes on these trips, and they're taking their learning with them, so that in the truck ride over to the sites, they're learning about construction techniques as they go technology, mobile devices. They're also getting academic credit for this too. So again, fulfilling some of our educational goals, some of our service goals, and some of our deployment of technology goals, all in one fell swoop. I hope many of you will have future goals like these too, that don't just think about the technology, but also think about the human aspects of innovation and how we're going to grow. I'm going to post some of my favorite resources for how to have an innovative organization from places like Wharton and from Everett Rogers, and also from Clayton Christensen from Harvard, talking about disruptive classroom technology and the educator's prescription, things like that. But I thought I'd leave you, for those of you that came looking for some of the high-end technology innovation, with a few of the ones that are most compelling to me, and maybe we can have some discussion as we end off our time together today too around some of these, and follow it up with some of the questions that I've asked inside of the wiki that I want to direct you to. So I have a few different areas here: suites of apps, peripherals, location-based services, and what's happening with 4G and 3D technology that I think are really compelling.